Talk about it. Let's talk about it. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Good afternoon, Monday night. Hey, YouTube. Hello, Facebook Live. This is Dialogue with Dozie. You got part of the team. You got Dozie Elvana, alias the Suntan Superman. No, Dozie, I'm here. Okay, stop playing. Dialogue with Dozie is on your airways. We're so glad that you joined. I want you to share this program out tonight. We have one of the more important programs that we're going to that you're going to ever see in this forum. And tonight's dialogue, we're gonna be talking about Project 2025. And if it sounds scary, believe you me, it is scary. And we're going to talk about that shortly. But we want to start off tonight with some sad news. And this is like late breaking news that just kind of broke. In Charlotte, North Carolina, there was a tragedy. And 3 federal marshals were killed. 3 federal marshals were killed and 5 law enforcement officers were wounded. I understand 1 person is dead. I don't think he's been listed as a suspect. 2 people are in custody. That's in Charlotte, North Carolina. Details are kind of sketchy, but apparently the team of the federal marshals had gone there to make an arrest, and gunfire ensued. 1 person in the front yard was killed, and 3 federal marshals were killed. 5 total law enforcement officers were injured. And so our thoughts and prayers go out to them wholeheartedly tonight. And I just saw that just before we signed on. So we want to talk about that, and we want to send all of our love to that community and to that agency. It hits home for me because when I was a law enforcement officer, the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, came after me because I was I was a good statistic for them with law enforcement experience, and they came to me to as soon as I would have finished my 4-year degree to sign me up. And I was my mind was already set that I was heading to seminary at that point, so I knew that likely wouldn't occur. It was for, what was I, 28 years old. It was exciting that they even came after me and offered me a position. And back then, with those federal agencies, they kind of put you where they wanted to. So I could have ended up in Idaho, Iowa, somewhere anyway. But that was never a thought. But the one federal position that I have always, from the time I stepped into law enforcement academy in 1977, I think it was, is the federal marshals. It's always been a branch of the federal law enforcement that got my attention. And if you see me looking, I'm trying to just kind of keep an eye on the score to see that the Heat is still alive after the night's game. I always sympathize. I always like the federal marshals. I think the federal marshals had talked to my dad at some point about being involved, and I was always excited about, intrigued with what they do. But I knew ultimately law enforcement would not be my end. I would at some point be heading to seminary to prepare for the ministry the Lord had called me to before he called me into law enforcement. So our heart goes out to those families, to the federal, all law enforcement officers, all Charlotte in area law enforcement officers, particularly the federal marshals that are stationed in that area, and to the federal marshals as a whole. Whenever you lose a brother officer, it is indeed it's a different feeling, and I've been through that 3 or 4 times while serving, and it's a different feeling. So our hearts and our prayers go out to them. The other news item today is with the Trump trial on hiatus today. The big news that occupied all the networks throughout the day were the protest on college campuses. The protest of students on college campuses. and it kind of started out on at Columbia University. I think we may have spoken about that on last week. The protest and the Speaker of the House trying to do something to get Marjorie Taylor Greene off of his case, was calling for the president of Columbia University's head, because she had called law enforcement in because there were protests on the yard. And as I stated last week, protests on the yards of college campuses were mainstay. In fact, back in the day, particularly at Columbia University, the administration would accommodate those protests by getting food, blankets, shelter, all of those things of the people who protested on the quad at that university there in New York. And again, that one caught my eye because I wanted to do that dual program at Union Seminary and Columbia University at social work. So that caught my eye. And so one day after talking about them, she called the city of New York, the police department. They came and made mass arrests. Police said they were the most generous group of kids they'd ever arrested. Well, today, and I guess this weekend, protests have broken out across all of the college campuses. They have been particularly showing, and this is interesting, in Athens, Georgia, the University of Georgia, most of the New York universities, and another conservative area, Austin, Texas, the University of Texas. The national networks and several of them showed them throughout the day. They showed live as the police were breaking them, as they were making arrests of the protesters. And it's what they're protesting. Forgive me for just getting to that. They are protesting America's alliance with Israel and the atrocities and the inhumanities, inhumane treatment and the inhumane things that are taking place to the poor people in Gaza during this conflict. So I wanted to bring this to your attention, and want you to pay attention to this. So, and one of the things got the University of Georgia. So you never hear of schools like that. These southern universities, you don't hear of them getting involved in these protests. But the University of Georgia was particularly involved because a branch of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, of one of their statewide agencies, was going over to train with the Israeli, one of their federal agencies, and do joint trainings. And it was more than the students at Georgia. And really, I understand that. I understand their concern. So America is really up in arms. It's going to have some ramifications on the elections. If you remember in the Michigan primaries, they did a write-in campaign against President Biden. He won and won by big numbers, but they did a write-in campaign in against President Biden because they thought that he's siding with Israel over Gaza. And to set the record straight, he has been very strong with Israel, and he has done. I guess the only thing you can do is just withhold funds that were just approved. So you can't withhold those, but you could cut back funding of Israel trying to go after Hamas. And that's Israel's whole thing as to why they're bombing the poor people and relocating them and leaving them in ignominious living conditions, because they're going after Hamas. Well, Hamas are supposedly hiding out underground, and that's where they're keeping the hostages in tunnels that are so deep underground and so far they could be over in Egypt or wherever. So the treatment that the people of Gaza are getting from Israel is it needs to be examined, and it needs to be stopped. That was real minor language. It needs to be examined. It needs to be stopped. Listen, share this program out to your friends. What we're going to be talking about in a second, and we're going to do a part 2 of this, and we're going to do it in a different. We're going to approach it from the other side of needs in a few weeks, if not next week. Tonight, I want to talk about. So keep your eyes on the news, follow those protests, and please pray for those families of those law enforcement agents who lost their lives, and that community and that agency and all law enforcement. When a law enforcement officer is killed anywhere, it could be in the remotest part of the state of Washington. Uh, it affects law enforcement everywhere. And I've been away from the profession since 1986, I think it is. But because of my families and my work in law enforcement, my heart will always be with them. But I'm objective, okay? Let's keep that straight. Tonight, we're here to talk about Project 2025. Project 2025. And the first thing I want to ask you is, has anyone ever heard of Project 2025? Is anyone familiar with Project 2025? I don't know if you're even familiar with it, because I'm kind of understanding that's something that a lot of our community does not even know about. A lot of our community does not even know about Project 2025, and I just want to get it. I want to make sure that we at least do know about Project 2025. So I'm trying to get back to my notes. I got all of these things I need to get out. So first, let me give you a brief of what it is, and I'm going a little bit more in depth. Project 2025 is a brainchild of 3 members of the Heritage Foundation. Well, those of us the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation is the one of the most conservative think tanks in America. Emanates out of Washington, D.C. All the ultra conservatives flock to the Heritage Foundation. If you are part of the Heritage Foundation or you have their endorsement, you're in good shape if you serve if you're a member of that party. Okay, so the Heritage Foundation, many of those right-wing conservative justices of the Supreme Court are members, or I guess they can't say they're members, but they are fond of and have affiliation with the Heritage Foundation. There's no free endorsements tonight. I'm drinking out of my golf cooler. When that company decides that I drink that out of their cup, they decide they want to become a sponsor for Dialogue with Dozie. We'll go back to it. This was convenient tonight. So the Heritage Foundation, there are 3 members who are part of the Heritage Foundation, and they're the ones who have come up with this plan called Project 2025. The big name person involved in Project 2025, the person who's done a lot of the talking, and it's kind of like a sports, not a sports person. It's kind of like a spokesperson for this. And I'm gonna get my head up in a second, Madam Producer. But I'm looking. He is the former White House Deputy Chief of Staff under the recent former president, and his name is Richard Dearborn. I've heard the name before. Richard Dearborn is like the brainchild behind Project 2025. He and 2 other conservatives are the brainchild. Now I'm going to quickly give you the 4 pillars of Project 2025. Why am I telling you this? One of the fears that we have is that if this nation elects the 45, the former president, if he returns to the White House, we can kiss our democracy, our democratic principles, our democratic ways, our freedom. We're already getting equity and diversity and all those things, and inclusiveness. All of that is being torn down at every level. But if that group gets back in the White House, that president, and what I'm about to share with you will confirm this, that president won't have Republican operatives with experience with them serving him. He's already said he's going to have the most right wing. Imagine Roger Stone as a I'm trying to keep my eye off the game. So imagine Roger Stone as the chief advisor to the president of the United States. Imagine Steve Bannon, if he can stay out of prison, being the chief advisor to the president of the United States. Well, these are the type people that he has said that he is going to surround himself with. And he has used the language that I will be dictator for a day. Well, we know if he's, because all of his the people that he admires most are dictators. Otto Warren down in Venezuela, we know he's boy. I almost said something that I would have gotten in trouble for saying, but we know that he is Putin's. How can I say this? Clean it up. What's in my mind? He's Putin's boy. Let me just say it like that. For whatever reason, there must be some kind of economic tie. I don't know what it is, but let's just say he's Putin's boy. So he has a lot of love for autocrats and for dictators. Well, Project 2025, that flunky. Thank you, Mac. I had another name, but I couldn't say that. Project 2025 makes it easier for all of this to take place. Project 2025 will start laying down the foundation is based on 4 pillars. I have 4 fingers up. You have 4 pillars. Project 25 is based on 4 pillars, but it's based on 4 pillars, but the ramifications run far deeper than these 4 pillars. Let me tell you what the 4 pillars are. The first one, and this is their book, this is 1,000-page book that they have written to deeply outline everything in here. The first pillar is a mandate for leadership. It's a mandate for leadership. And in a mandate for leadership, well, it kind of goes by the thought that we teach when we're talking about voter registration and voter education. Yes, vote in the national elections, but also vote down ballot. Vote for your senators, vote for the president, the presidential package, but vote down ballot, because there's a lot of power that lies in the school boards, local sheriffs, all of these things. And so we're being told to vote for all of them. But the initiative of Project 25's initiative, the first pillar, as they call them, is the mandate for leadership. And it solely is based on them occupying the White House. It's based on them occupying the White House. Then with them occupying the White House, it's called Mandate for Leadership, the conservative promise. It's a promise. It's not a thought. It's not a desire. It's not just an ideology. It's a promise. It's what they're going to do if the White House is reoccupied by 45. Okay? Hopefully all of this stuff will blow away if there's a different outcome in this fall's election. Hopefully this stuff will blow away by 28 and beyond. But the mandate for leadership calls for this. It calls for a reorganization of the Department of Health and Human Services to the intelligence community. Now, can you imagine that? Your housing, that's where all of that comes from. Your housing, your healthcare issues, all of those now belong to the intelligence community. Now, we probably suspect that people are looking into our business, our affairs anyway, but now we'll know. That's what they call for. It's premised by the thought that they must occupy the White House. And I say they because I do try to be an objective journalist and keep my opinions, limited. But this, I'm going to be straight out about this because I don't want to live under communism and under dictatorship. And I'm going to tell you more when we start talking about the response to this. Okay. Their thought is whoever's in the White House, whoever's in that seat, will make it possible for them to have a stronghold on changing these policies. They're looking for a particular White House counsel, like the kind of names that I've called out, those the far right. They will be head of a domestic policy council or their senior advisors. That's what they're looking for, but they need the White House in order for that to happen. So that's the first thing. They're also talking about splitting the Centers for Disease Control into 2 separate agencies. One, which is another. We saw what happened in the pandemic. We saw how poorly that was managed by 45. We're going to talk about that in a second. So the first policy, the first pillar of the 2025, and I'm going to get all 4 of them in before the break, second half of the break, we'll talk about the ramifications for people who look, sound, and think kind of like we do. The second pillar is that people are policy. People are policy. The first thing they want to do is create a database of at least 10,000 people, of like-minded people. They want to form a database of 10,000 like-minded people. Well, I could probably tell them where they could find those pretty easily. But my family, Madam Producer, and others have told me to watch my language and not talk about snaggletooth, backwoods, hillbilly. I'm not going to stop there. So it's easy for them to find. Is all I'm going to say. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. So they're looking for conservatives. They're looking for conservatives. They said that they have never had large numbers of collected of conservatives and scholars working collaboratively, but that's what they want to do. They say people set the policy, not people. Right-wing conservatives are the ones that they want to set the policy. People are policy. That's the second one. They want to populate the Department of Defense, and they want to take over the intelligence apparatus of this nation, and they want them to come under that crazy right-wing perspective. That's who they want to set and make these policies in our America. Is our dear Dr. Bracy can say, and that's what's going on in the great state of Florida. Well, that's what Project 25 wants to do to the United States of America. The first policy, mandate for leadership. The second pillar is people policy. The third pillar is training. And I don't know why when I think about training, my mind goes to some backwoods. I'm gonna be good. I'm not gonna say nothing bad. That my mind goes to some backwoods, like a paramilitary training facility. That's where my mind kind of goes back when I think about training. Let me tell you what they define as training. They want training so they have hands on the levers to actually push the programs to make them to affect the agenda the way they want it to. They say if you don't have that, you're stuck and you're just running around in a circle. That's a direct quote of Dearborn. Project 25 will step in and equip people to fill key political positions, and the things that they don't need to know now, they will train them. That's what they're saying. They're there to train them. That's a scary notion in itself. The fourth pillar of Project 2025 is executive orders. Executive orders. Can you imagine 45 with a pen and a desk to set executive orders as he sees fit? That's what they're saying. Okay, so when you let me read this quote. When you write an executive order, you're working on a regulation. If you want to roll back a regulation, if you want to promote a program, you do it through executive orders, and that's what this transition team, this mandate for leadership, that's what they want. They said if they had these things in place in 2026, that president would have had a more successful term. And they kind of say on the other side, the backside of that is that he would have had his people, and he would not have had people in there to make sure, for instance, stuff like he didn't get his hands on the nuclear codes, he didn't match them, rather, he didn't press them. That's what they're saying. So they're saying Project 2025 understands they want the input of these people. The four pillars again, before we go to break, the four pillars: mandate for leadership, people of policy, training people, and executive orders. These are the mandates. In the second half of the break, I'm going to come back and tell you what the ramifications of them having these extreme initiatives in place. And that's precisely what they are. They're extreme initiatives. Okay, so they have what they call a call to order. They're trying to sign up people for the database. They want them to be trained to read that book, man. The name of the book is the first pillar's name, Mandate for Leadership. And they don't care if you're not an expert. They'll indoctrinate you. Let's just use that term. So I want to get off from this stuff because it's killing me even reading it. So this is what a segment of the people in the United States of America, which has been called the greatest nation on the planet. This is what they are. This is part of what they are talking about. So I need your comments. I need you to tell somebody that we're talking about this right now. This is dangerous stuff, y'all. You've heard the former president himself say that he would be dictator for a day. You've heard it outlined that he's going to put people around him. He's not going to have the generals from the military that he had around him the last time that tried to give him some guidance and who prevented him from doing far more extreme things than he did. You're talking about a group that wants to abolish the FBI. They want to reorganize the Justice Department. You've heard them say that on the first day of his election, he's coming after certain journalists. He's coming after members of the Biden family. He's coming after basically anybody who has not supported him or supported his programs. Our country could be an autocracy, not a democracy. I'm throwing this out. I want you to share this. This is important stuff. Well, you say it doesn't matter to me. When we talk to kids and try to educate them about civics and voting and this stuff, they say they're all corrupt. Well, the corruption probably does exist. You know, we're probably talking about corruption that we're talking about now that would be on a greater level. But what you're talking about, the Constitution, which has protected people like us, and I don't mean just people of color, I mean marginalized people across the board, the Constitution, democracy, and those kinds of things. Voters' Rights Act came out of this, the right to travel, the Civil Rights Acts, and other acts, protection across the board, the reforms of the Obama administration, all of those things would be reversed just like that. I'm going to tell more about it on the other half of the hour. We're going to look at the social stuff that's going to be deleted and depleted if Project 2025. If you don't say anything else, if you don't think of anything else, I want you to have Project 2025 on your mind. Let me tell you how horrific it is. You don't have to go to see what members of the left, or what they would call the left wing, the left media, or what they have written and what they've said about it. Read what the proponents of Project 2025 has to say, what they have to say. That's scary in itself. They don't hide it. They may, put it under the name of inclusivity and justice and all of this stuff, but read it. They're spelling it out. It doesn't help people who look like us, people who live where we live, people who communicate with the least, the last, the left out, the marginalized. Check it out for yourself. Listen, I think I'm gonna go to break now, and I got one of our good ones tonight to come back for at the break. Let's go to break, and we'll be back. GoGetGoodWorld.com. For 4 years now, they have made Dialogue with Dozie and other things that we do effective. They have made us look good. It's been a good presentation. The depth, the quality, it's all been there. It's all there for you. GoGetGoodWorld.com. Contact them today. Markia, the Latoyas and company, get in touch with them and let them make things better for you. I think Neo has a song called You Make Me Better. I think that's it. GoGetGoodWorld.com makes us better. And we just want to invite you to them and let them hook up all of your virtual needs. They also do a very effective web building and the like. GoGetGoodWorld.com. You saw the celebrities that were there on the advertisement. We're so grateful to be a part and affiliated, and we thank you all for everything you do. Listen, we're bringing back an old one tonight. This was the first thing that we did. It's called Are You Serious? Oh, Bill Barr, Billy Boy, Are You Serious? Where's the Are You Serious? Yeah, there it is. Are You Serious? Bill Barr, former Attorney General of the United States of America, 2 times Attorney General of the United States of America. Bill Barr, who was brought in when Jeff Sessions was basically fired from office because he was trying to be an attorney general that led by the law as opposed to carrying out a particular agenda of a president and being the private attorney for a president. Bill Barr. Y'all remember him, don't you? He came in, he interpreted one of the investigations against 45, and he held it up to a strategic time. And when he finally brought it on the forefront, all of the ingredients of it were whitewashed. Bill Barr, are you serious? Billy Boy was on CNN the other night, and he was on CNN the other night, and he gave an interview. And for those of you all who know, you know that he resigned just before the president's term was over because of a disagreement. He didn't agree with the president on January the 6th. He didn't agree with him on several things. So Billy Boy resigned. He showed some principle. He resigned. And Bill Barr has gone on the record to say that President Trump, he called him some names. They've gone back and forth. The other night, after saying he was the most dangerous thing and he does not belong behind the requisite desk or whatever that desk is, Bill Barr came out the other night on CNN in an interview and said that President Trump would get his vote. Bill Barr, are you serious? On one side, you say that he is dangerous. You say that he doesn't need to be anywhere near the White House and have the power of that office. And then you come back now and say that you would give him your vote. Are you serious? So you said it is the Biden policies that you would want him to be away from. You would not. You would avoid the Biden policies. You rather have him than the Biden policies. Are you serious? Okay, so let me calm down. Mitch McConnell, who is also heavily spoken out against the president, the former president, has recently said that he too would support him in November. He would vote for him because that's what the Republican conference wants him to do. Whatever happened to people of principle? I know this is going on, but I haven't done this in a long time. Bill Barr, are you serious? You tried to come back and be a man of principle. You answered the January 6th commission honestly. You sounded like a law enforcement officer that you have been sworn in twice to be. You call it like it was. You went down the line in the letter of the law, and now you're coming back and you can support this person that you say is too dangerous to be behind the office. Are you serious? Bill Barr, unfortunately, you represent too many people who have not made up their minds. They can't set a standard. They can't decide. They can't make up their minds that to be all the way right. They can't make up in their minds that I'm gonna stand up for justice. I'm gonna stand up for what's right. I'm gonna stand up what's good for the American people. I'm gonna stand up for righteousness. You say it with your mouth, and then you come back and you make a decision that you're gonna support the man who you know will not do anything. I gotta quit. Bill Barr, are you serious? Hey, I'm through. I can't do this no more. So we're talking about Project 2025. Listen, to those of you who missed the night show, I guess you won't. But if you look at it later, please share it out with somebody because I want as many people as possible to be informed about this horrific project and the danger of it, or what it does, what it can do to our society, what it can do. I'm going to highlight some parts of an article that was written by Brandon Tinsley. Brandon Tinsley, you may know him. You see him on CNN and maybe MSNBC. I don't think he made it over to Fox for whatever reason. But Brandon Tinsley wrote this article that's called Project 25 and the Movement That Could Erode Black Equality. Now, I probably don't have the right to do this, but I'm going to take out the name. I want to take out the word Black equality, and I'm just going to say this. I want to say Project 25 and the movement that could erode equality, because as we get into it, you'll see that there's far more than Black equality in here. You're going to see far more than that. He says that Trump, if he gets back in office, it's going to be a revenge tour. He calls it a revenge tour. And he says that Trump is going to get everybody who didn't agree with him, everybody who's been a part of these criminal trials against him. He says that all of these issues, all of these things will contribute to Trump leading a retribution tour. I didn't mean to call his name. Okay, let me quote this. He says, "I'm your warrior." This is a quote from the former president. "I am your warrior. I am your justice. For those who have been wrangled and betrayed, I am your retribution." He said that to a group of red-baited people who were just waiting on that kind of thing, just like those people on January the 6th who heard it and then marched down to the Capitol. And by the way, we had a guest a few weeks ago who said, if you remember, it wasn't the people on the Capitol that were there. It was a whole group of people, different group of people that were at the Capitol. And the implication was that there were agent provocateurs in there that were imposters that were doing that in the name of those who were Trump supporters. Well, all you got to do is follow the footage, the news footage, the cameras. You can even look at the cameras from that network that got sued that supports him. So, and they will verify that. So, Tinsley says it will be the retribution tour. He says that's what it would be. And he said, what would happen is everything that's called anti-white racism will be removed from any document. If you look at some federal documents, or the implications of them are anti-white racism. He says, let me just quote it. This administration would be to redirect the federal government's focus to what the former president and his supplicants believe to be the actual problem afflicting our country, anti-white racism. In particular, they would erode all of the gains of the 1960s civil rights issue. And they would erode any protest groups and cut down abilities to protest, the kind that you saw around the killing of George Floyd in 2020. We're going to do a 2020 look back in a few months down the road. I want you to be there for that. He calls it an assault on civil rights. And I say it's an assault on human rights. Did you see more about it? This is a transition plan. And I keep seeing it referred to as a transition plan, but it's far more than a transition plan. It is the ideology. It is the game plan for by which the next that president, if he's reelected, if he gets back in office, that president would run the White House. And it's just a game plan because he would be even more extreme than that. Remember, these people from the Heritage Foundation try to be known as elite conservative scholars. So they try to write, think, and speak within the framework of democracy, conservative democracy, extreme democracy, but they try to do it under the framework of conservatism. Well, it's far more than that. It's far, far more than that. If this guy gets in office, it'll be more than a transition. It'll just be a prelude to where he wants to go and what he wants to do. We had a show a few weeks ago that asked, why is America enamored with 45? And all I could hear was finger pointing at the media. I could not hear anybody say anything about all of the things that had happened during that presidency. The country was divided racially, economically. The only thing that this president can put his finger on that he did was the only thing that he could that can be said that he did was that he trying to stop with correspondence. The only thing that he did was got a tax cut for the rich, $500,000 and above, which included himself and his friends. That's the only thing that can be said that he did. Oh yeah, during the George Floyd protests outside the White House, he did have people, law enforcement types, go in and clear out the crowd from the White House to the church. I think Presbyterian Church right across the street, where he held up a songbook thinking it was a Bible. Remember, he's the guy who says 2 Corinthians, it's 2 Corinthians, saint. And he held it upside down, and he held it up as a symbol of unity to Christianity, I guess. Go figure. Anyway, so this is what we're dealing with. So he says that this policy agenda is expansive. It details how this guy will use the federal apparatus to negate all gains that are made from education to the infrastructure bill that President Biden got passed bipartisan like. And he says it will also eradicate healthcare and LGBTQ issues. And there's an issue we're going to look back right at there. Okay. Now, one of the things that we're seeing is, and when I read these, doing my research, I did a lot of reading for the night show. I learned that we know there are those rich and mainly people who are affiliated with the insurance industry. If they are not in the insurance industry, and if they could get this stuff passed, and if this guy gets back in office, it could happen. I hope we would have enough people in the legislature, the legislative branch of the government, to see to it that it doesn't. But they would love to overhaul Medicare. And let me tell you why they want to overhaul it. Because then they could get their hands on money themselves. They can make money themselves. They want to privatize it and take it out of the hands of the government. That's what they want to do. We got a senator in the state of Florida that's coming up for re-election. His name is Rick Scott. He was heavy in the insurance industry. Remember, Rick Scott got fined. Rick Scott was fined. He was fined just before becoming governor. Fined big money because of cheating, basically welfare cheating, the system. And he's one of the main ones that want to do it. I'm going to talk about that more in a second. What they want to do is with education, they want to roll back everything that the Biden administration has done for debt relief. Now, when we talk about debt relief, we talk about the forgiveness of student loans. He has been able to, President Biden, after the Supreme Court, after Congress whined, the Supreme Court stopped what he was trying to do with the relieving debt of young people who couldn't buy houses, who were caught in the cycle of debt because of student loans, and 45%, which is disproportionate to the number of people in this rate. 45% of those were Black and brown people who are indebted, who are burdened by student loans. I have grandkids that are heading to school. I'm so concerned about that. I have kids that have finished. I know people that are, when I say burden, I mean burden. If burden, I can't say it good, but you know what I mean. If you get any kind of secondary degree, if you just get the master's divinity that I have, if I had to go back now, I would be severely hampered, probably to the tune of $150,000 minimum to get that degree. If it's a doctorate that you're trying to get, if you're getting a if you're trying to get a law degree, you're probably looking anywhere north of $250,000. That's a burden. So you're hamstrung. You can't get a house. You have to pay rent for years. You can't start, you can't give your family. Most of us who start our family, we want to be able to put monies aside for our kids to go to college and those kinds of things. That doesn't happen. President Biden found a way around it. He found some money to get around the restrictions that the Supreme Court stopped him. And now Project 2025 would end all of that. Those grants that were there, they would cut it out. They would stop them. They said the president is acting outside of statutory authority, and they would stop it. That's the plan educationally of this administration. They want to stop it. They want to cut out student loans. Now, I'm talking about things that not only affect people who look like me, probably look better than me, but people who look like me, but also people, anybody who's in this country who's looked at as a minority, whatever the minority status are. Healthcare. Project 2025 wants to impose work restrictions, work requirements on Medicare. Well, you get Medicare. You get Medicare after you're 65 or older, which is basically retirement. You have retired. You can't get Medicare without retirement. I think I know something about that firsthand. You don't get Medicare until you retire. Now, they want people to go back to work. This is part of that Republican, that right wing thing that Rick Scott and the boys want to impose. They want to make you go back and start working again. They want to put work requirements on Medicare. Here's the danger. Several states have already started putting things in order so that if Trump gets in office, they're in place. And some of these things will be hard to reform if they ever turn around. Those states, well, this is not surprising, Idaho, Missouri, and South Carolina have already started putting programs in place to reform Medicare if Trump wins in November. Isn't that scary? Now, research already shows that these reforms would fuel racial inequality in Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans. People of color would be the ones who would be affected the most by this. Can you imagine somebody who has retired because of a medical disability and they've got to go back to work in order to meet requirements to get Medicare? Listen, you paid money for Medicare. That's not something they're giving you. You put money in that system like Social Security, which they also want to privatize. I'm not saying Social Security doesn't have issues, but there can be other issues, other ways of working it out other than just trying to take it from people and make people go to work, okay, back to work after they work. So what they want to do is make people go to work, and the stereotype that they have is to portray Black people as lazy or scheming. Y'all really got to share this out. People got to hear this. They got to know this. Remember the welfare queen thing that was put forth in the 1970s? Now listen. If Kim was here, he would say he likes the hood. He likes living in the hood. He likes being in the hood. Okay, all of us have had some hood experience where we lived there, worked there, done stuff there. When I was teaching, I only wanted to work in hood schools. All of us have had those experiences. And we know about some welfare queens, maybe. But I guarantee you, for every one we know, there's another one on the other side. There's another 5 on the other side of the track. I'm not going to have anybody after this, but I just got to get there. So abortion, which I don't spend a lot of time dealing with, they claim that 1/3 of abortions are there for Black women. They say Black women are the ones who do one-third of all of the abortions. Now, my statistics didn't line up with this, but this is what they said. Some Republican-led states are already targeting other methods of in vitro fertilization and everything. And we're going to probably end up consulting with people. We're going to have a show about the abortion and the effects of the Supreme Court and decisions and all of that. But these are the things that Project 24 wants to wipe out in the wonderful United States of America. Bet, Matt. Okay, the other thing, LGBTQ issues. Let me just read what he says about this. Project 2025 seeks to ramp up an assault on LGBTQ rights and wipe out certain federal protections for queer Americans. This entails, as the policy agenda puts it, ending the United States Department of Health and Human Services. He goes on to say that this foray into woke transgender activism will be scrubbed and acknowledge that gender and sexual identity from every federal rule, every agency, every regulation, every contract, every grant, every rule, every requirement, and every piece of legislation that exists. That's another show that we have been talking about. And when we get the right elements in place, the right people, the right resources, we may foray into that also. We've been having that discussion for several years now. But these are the things they have already gotten in place. And if you'll notice, there was an episode last night, I don't know if you saw it, of The Equalizer, where Queen Latifah and Latifah kind of falls. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. She falls under this, and that was a show. In fact, I mean, I didn't just tape it; I kept it. It was just such a good show that showed these conversion camps, which I had never heard of in New York State. These conversion camps and what they did to people, the harm that they did, the harm that these conversion camps did, and how radical they were, and how outside of the law they were, all in an attempt to convert people to where they thought that they should be. And that's a whole nother answer, another question, another show. But all I'm saying is Project 25 would further imperil LGBTQ Americans. Wherever you stand on that, we don't want any branch, any person in America disparaged, anybody, because of who they are, the color of their skin, the religion that they serve under, the side of the tracks they live on, the amount of money they have or don't have, the education that they don't have. Yeah, I think I want to see that movie, Matt. Drop Squad. Thank you for laying that one on me. Yes, exactly. I learned all that last night by watching it. I kept that show. So this is under these Republican-led statutes, they want to repeal a lot of things that are in place, and then they want to put things in place that will only foster an atmosphere of or an epidemic of violence for LGBTQ Americans. Everybody is created by God, and nobody deserves to be mistreated. Civil rights. Project 2025 calls for shifting the attention of the U.S. Department of Justice to squashing the Civil Rights Division will be gone. The FBI would no longer investigate civil rights investigations. Could you imagine what it would be like if they were not doing these cold cases from all the craziness that occurred to Black people in the South during the 50s and 60s, all the lynch mobs and all of those things that they did? Could you imagine what it would be like if they were to repeal all of that? That's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. They want to prosecute all state and local governments, institutional or higher education, corporation, or any other private employees that have affirmative action or DEI policies. Now, when we were debating the title of tonight's show, I wanted the word extreme in there, because that's precisely what this is. It is absolutely extreme to prosecute people because they have provisions in place to make to try to make things equal in America, in the great United States of America. Thank you, Dr. Bracy. Okay. And he goes on, Tinsley goes on and says, hard to underestimate how damaging these effects would be. Climate control, I'm rushing to conclude. Climate control, the first thing will be gutted is the Inflation Reduction Act. The Inflation Reduction Act that came about as a result of which says that some 10 million climate-friendly jobs over the next 10 years will be wiped out. Oh yeah, and another thing they want to do, they want to guarantee fossil fuel, which pollutes the atmosphere. I learned this while talking to a family member. People have vested interest in those kinds of things, and so they don't care about the climate. They just want to be able to line their pockets. The green initiatives will all go out the door. Okay, we're trying to keep we're trying to keep it alive. So let's just look back at what it was like when 45 was in office. Y'all remember COVID-19? One of the things that this initiative would do would abolish. It would totally abolish. I'm trying to see the name of that out of Atlanta. Help me, Mac. What's the name? The disease. The Center for Disease Control, the CDC. The Center for Disease Control. It would abolish it because it did not agree with anything that they put forth. Well, all I can say is this: over 1 million Americans perished, probably 3 times the size of any other nation. Are we the largest nation? No. I know right off the rip that India is larger than we are. Remember who was president? Remember the guy who said, remember Dr. Fauci, that maybe we could just like get some bleach and inject it in our veins, and it'll clear. Yeah, that's what it would do. It will clear this. It will clear COVID-19 out. He almost died of COVID-19. But remember that. Remember when this president came in and put reforms and put initiatives in place that immediately those numbers started going down. Do you remember that? Okay. His tough on crime. Yeah, he did. And kudos to him. He did pardon some rappers. He pardoned this lady who was spent all the time in Mississippi prison for marijuana conviction that she, was outrageous. He did do that. It was a black lady. But look how many brothers and sisters went to prison under him because of his crime policies. It filtered down to here to where this guy he got this red legislature over in Tallahassee to where now you really can't protest. You have to be so careful even in protesting now in the great state of Florida. In the great state of Florida. Because you could go to jail. There are severe restrictions. Can you imagine what we would be without protests? I got you, Madam Producer. Can you imagine what that would be like? Well, just wanted to bring this in. Let me just say this. A lot of the stuff that has been wiped out that would go to a higher degree if 45 gets back in office with this transition, quote unquote transition, Project 2025 as a transitionary thing. You know what it would do? All of these judges, beginning at the Supreme Court, we know about them and what they have done. What you don't know about the state courts, these state Supreme Courts, these are appellate courts, all of these things, these judges that were put in place over a 4-year term, imagine what that would be like. Listen, I'm done. I just want you, whenever you hear the term Project 2025, and as I was discussing it with people today, I was kind of surprised. It's something that has not been talked about a lot in our community, progressive community, that is. Project 2025, get that on your minds and share it with other people, Mac. Tell people about it. Marcus, all of you who are looking over on YouTube that I can't see, tell people about it. Tell them about this show. Tell them about tonight's dialogue with Dozie on this show, April the 29th, 2024. Tell me, go back and look at this show. I gave you the Cliff Notes version of Project 2025. The danger for all you guys who are saying, I don't need to vote because everybody's corrupt. I don't need to vote because it don't make any difference anyway. I am not inviting you. I am begging you to look at the initiative of this. They're so emboldened that they don't even try to hide. Go back and look at it. We can't let that happen. Dialogue with Dozie. We'll see you next week. If not next week, in the upcoming weeks, what we really wanted to do this week, we wanted to look, we had to pivot kind of in a 24-hour period. We had to pivot to this show. We really wanted to go back and look at ESPN 30 for 30, and we wanted to pick the top 10. But Disney, who owns ESPN, would not come off of those videos. So we'll still do it in the upcoming weeks, but we'll have to do it now with posters and I have to have a panel to do it. We may even try to put that together for next week, looking and coming up with the best ESPN 30 for 30s. Hey, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate GoGigaWorld.com. Where would we be without you guys? You make us look good. You do a great job for us. Great production team. And for people like Mac and Bernard and others who are asking me through the week what you got this week, or who are following us and who comment, we thank you so much. And for those of you who sign on and you don't comment, but you are there, we just appreciate you. Thank you for making Dialogue with Dozie a mainstay on Monday night since 2024. Dialogue with Dozie, we love you. We'll be right back here in the dialogue next Monday night. God bless. We'll see you. The dialogue is out.